We saw The Flash. This will be a spoiler-free discussion. I gotta have Connor Behrens here with me. Later, we'll have Bryan Chatlien, my co-host, and Eric Holzman to talk Spider-Man. Let's chat.
Everybody, come on, let's get down. Get down.
What do you think of that music, buddy?
That was a pretty cool intro.
Isn't that cool?
I don't know if you've ever seen those Dead Mall series by Dan Bell on YouTube, but it was very reminiscent of like the 80s, 90s intros he does.
Oh, is that right? Thank you.
Yeah.
My assistant, my 9-year-old daughter, just brought me some water.
Nice.
So my friend Freak Bass, who's an amazing human being and an amazing bass player, he did that music for us, and his beautiful wife did our logo, and then a buddy of mine did the little graphic video. So we've had a lot of support here in our little show, sir. Connor, you and I go way back. First, why don't you tell everybody who the hell you are? Because when I met you, you're young now, but you were even younger then, and you were a film critic for what is the newspaper there? The Galveston what?
So I previously worked at the Galveston County Daily News. I had been doing film critic reviews for a lot of publications online while working at that newspaper. Since then, I have gone on to work at several other magazines and publications and newspapers. I currently am in the corporate world. I'm working at a company in Galveston, Texas. But yeah, it's been a long time since we have chat and done one of these things. I think the last time we were on a thing together was we all got together for a Justice League trailer reaction, and that was like in 2017.
Yes, over at my old outlet on BOF. In fact, we have a BOF alum joining us here in just a little bit. Really, Eric's Straight Outta Gotham thing is on fire, so he's got his own podcast too. But we'll get to that in a little bit. Yeah, so you and I met initially at the Rogue One Star Wars press screening. And I remember when those Disney era Lucasfilm Star Wars movies were coming out, starting with Force Awakens, Rogue One, Last Jedi, man, I was getting really early access. You know, you and I saw that movie like a good literal solid week before it came out, if you remember. It wasn't just like 2 days. I mean, it was like a week. And I felt like Lucasfilm had like drones over my house and everything. What year was that? 2016?
Yeah.
Woo!
End of 2016. I was still in college back then.
Wow.
That was a while ago.
You know, I will never forget you helped me out because there was somebody on Reddit back in 2016, 17, somewhere in there, spreading some rumors about me. Do you remember this? When I was over at
I completely forgot about all that, but it's coming back to me.
Yeah, I think you called me, and then my friend Mark Hughes somehow got in the middle of it, and he was just being helpful. And I was like, "Who is this?" That I leaked some script or some stuff online. I was like, I don't have anything to leak, A, and B, I don't even have a login for Reddit. I've never been on Reddit. And you went on Reddit for me, and you were like, this dude asked me to do this. And I think I had you put my phone number up going, whoever's spreading these rumors, why don't you call me? Let's set this straight. I have joked over the years so many times, dude, that, you know, I've had like political podcasts and things where it's very contentious politics. Nothing compares to how vitriolic, is that a word? Vitriolic? This kind of stuff can be fandom, right? It's vicious.
Oh yeah, fans go crazy. I mean, it's way beyond like PC versus Apple or you know, it's team sports rivals. Like, yeah, fans, they get really pumped.
Yeah,
really passionate.
It's really interesting, especially when it comes to DC, Zack Snyder specifically, and Star Wars. Woo, boy, Star Wars. That has aged me over the years. Well, anyway, it's great to see you. I ran into you at the Flash screening on Monday night.
Yeah, it was a surprise. I saw you from a distance, and I was like, "That looks like Rick." And then you introduced yourself, and I'm like, "Okay, it's Rick."
Yeah, very nice. So life's good.
Yeah, life is great. Yeah, living on Galveston Island here in Texas, enjoying the beach and all the great things to do here. Weather's getting a little too humid and hot already, but hey, it's all good.
When we met first time, I was here in Houston because that's where I'm at now in Cyprus in my home. but I was still full time in Dallas, but I went to Houston for the premiere, and then I run into you in Pearland, Texas, which is a suburb of Houston, for this all these years later. It's just crazy how things happen. Crazy, my friend, crazy. Well, look, let's get to it. So this is kind of a two-part show. It is live, so we're doing it live. So we screw up or something, and by the way, there has been technical issues. I probably shouldn't put this out in the universe, but I'm going to anyway. Around my neighborhood, there's a major storm yesterday. AT&T's been going out, so let's just hope that the podcast gods are on my side today. And I'm in this new chair. I'm going to adjust here, so excuse me. So you and I saw The Flash on Monday. Oh, and Eric Holzman and Bryan Chatlien will be discussing Spider-Man here in about 20 minutes. So again, a two-part show. So what I thought we would do right now, and this is going to be hard for you and I think, is that, especially since we're live, so it's a real test, is that we need this to be 100% spoiler free. You think you can pull that off?
I actually wrote some notes to go off on so that it would kind of force me to like not go in another direction. So
I know, because there's things I want to say so specifically, but I can't. It's like this thing. So let's start off with this. If you don't mind, I'm gonna kind of start in terms of how I felt about it, and then I'm gonna pass it on to you. So to frame this, if you know me, I'm a huge Batman fan, huge. And Michael Keaton is the Batman that I grew up with. Well, technically Adam West is in terms of live action. I caught the reruns, but it was the summer before my freshman year in high school when Batman 89 came out. And I saw that movie 25 times in the theater. It's no joke, not being hyperbolic in the least, like quite literally that many times at the AMC on Gus Thomas in Mesquite, Texas. And I've been, a Michael Keaton fan ever since. Not a big fan of Batman Returns, but I still watch it just because he's in it. And his return to this film was like, it was a big deal for me. It is a big deal for me. So I went in with expectations of just having a good time and seeing the return of Michael Keaton. And I got those without question. Now, with that said, let me get the negative out of the way. I've seen it once. I see it again Monday. I did not love this movie. I hate that I didn't love this movie. About midway through this movie, I remember going, man, I don't know. I don't know if I like this movie very much. Or no, I don't know if I'm going to love this movie is a better way to phrase it. And I ultimately didn't. So I've got a lot of issues with it. The things that worked for me worked really well. And there's things I really love about it. There's some things I don't like about it. There's some things that are very questionable. But I'm very anxious to see it again. So I'm going to say the floor is yours, and then we'll kind of bounce off each other. So your reaction, and then how do you feel about this film? And let everybody know how many times you've seen it, please.
Sure. Oh, so I've only seen The Flash once so far.
Okay.
I enjoyed what Zack Snyder did. I'm a pretty solid fan of Man of Steel. It could be a whole nother discussion on if the path WB and Snyder went following Man of Steel was the right one or not. But I really enjoyed Man of Steel, so I was very excited about this movie, hearing that it was kind of going to revisit some events of Man of Steel. I grew up watching the Michael Keaton Batman movies on my dad's old tube TV upstairs in our game room. Obviously, I went to see Christian Bale in theaters first, but I know it was cartoons and it was Michael Keaton. That was kind of the first few ways I saw. I was introduced to the character of Batman. So I was really interested in this because I enjoyed Ezra Miller's take on Flash in previous films. I really, really love Michael Keaton as Batman. I'm a huge Superman fan, so I was excited that we would finally get to see Supergirl again, because God knows it's been like a million years since that Helen Slater film in the 80s. So I wouldn't say I loved this, but it's by no means, in my opinion, a train wreck or anything. I would say I really, 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 really liked it. And I would say that, considering everything that's going on with Ezra Miller in real life, it doesn't surprise me that Warner Brothers tried to tout this and market this as like the most amazing superhero film in several years, because they kind of needed something to stick with everyone and market it. And so that's just what they decided to go with. And I think if you go into this film expecting it to be like the best superhero film you've seen since like Endgame or something, you're going to be disappointed.
I agree.
But if you go in expecting to have a good, fun time with a popcorn blockbuster film, I think it's very enjoyable. And I think the script is very smart and witty. I like its themes on tragedy and letting go of the past. But like you, there's some things that were done in the film that not quite sure that really gelled with me. Um, but yeah, so like you, I didn't love this movie, but I did really, really like it.
No, that's where I'm at as well. In fact, I told my daughters when I came home from the screening, "Hey, did you like it?" I'm like, "Well," I said, I was gonna make a reactionary video after the film, and I didn't. I was uncharacteristically speechless. I didn't know what to say. I needed to sit on it. I needed to sleep on it." And they were like, "So, Daddy, are we gonna like it?" I said, "Yes, I think actually you guys are gonna love it." I said, "Because the issues Daddy has with it have more to do with I'm gonna say this, my history with certain actors and certain characters and things of that nature, much more of a frame of reference and expectations based on those. Going in with a clean slate or a very just casual slate, I think that it's a great time at the theaters. And what surprised me is the humor was great. I do think the humor got carried away a little bit. There's a couple of bits I wish I could comment on that I wish like maybe less was more kind of deal, but I don't want to get into that obviously. But uh, for the most part, it worked. But the stuff that was sweet, it did have a lot of heart, and the everything really with not just Ezra Miller and his mom, but also a lot of the stuff with his dad. And I was disappointed that Billy Crudup was not returning to the role. I don't even know why. Maybe you do. I don't know
Uh,
why.
because of COVID, I think that he was shooting that film, that TV show he does with Jennifer Aniston and Reese Witherspoon, that morning show thing on Apple TV. And because of COVID and filming schedules, I don't think he could travel to London to shoot this because it was shooting during COVID.
Oh, I see. That's why. Well, I love. Oh my goodness, what is his name? The actor. I will always know him from Office Space. That will always be. I can't remember his name.
Is
Oh
it
well,
Rob Livingston?
it's
Am I
Livingston. That's it. Yeah,
something Livingston? Yeah.
yeah, yeah. And
I mean, he's still
He's Peter.
he's.
Hey, Peter, check out Channel 8, dude. By
I
the way,
still
that's that.
think
Go ahead.
I still think he looks quite a bit like Ezra. It's not like they tried to cast someone who didn't completely look different than Ezra. I think they did a good job with the parents. But yes, I really enjoyed um, uh, uh, the scenes of his father from Zack Snyder's Justice League, and I really wish they could have continued that arc with that character, and I mean with that actor. Excuse me, but stuff happens, I guess.
Yeah, stuff happens, so often when there's a recasting for a character like that, it's sometimes difficult. I remember like with you referenced the Nolan trilogy earlier. Maggie Gyllenhaal stepping in for Mrs. Cruz. What's her name? I can't get Rachel Dawes out of my head, the character's name. Katie Holmes.
Katie Holmes.
Katie Holmes, and that was, always just weird. It was weird. Now, stuff like, Tommy Lee Jones playing Harvey Dent in Batman Forever um, versus Billy D. Williams. Yeah, that's more like, okay, this is a soft reboot. There's all kinds of aesthetic differences. There's a new Batman, etc. But for something like this is the same canon. I mean, I guess in a weird way we could justify it with the whole multiverse thing, but he obviously couldn't do it. But yeah, but anyway, so there's some really sweet moments with him and his parents, and even though some of the shtick wore on me a little bit, it got a little too like Bill and Ted esque, and Bill and Ted's great on its own, but trying to emulate that in 2023 is weird. Hell, it was weird for the actors to try to do that in 2020, quite frankly. But I think he did a really good job. I try to separate when I can the artist from the art, and there's sometimes I can't. I won't get into it because it could be contentious to somebody listening, but there are certain songs or certain films for certain people that are in them. I'm like, I can't watch this anymore. This person's not a good person. I still cringe every time I see an old Miramax film and it has Harvey Weinstein's name on the screen. I'm like, oh shit, I got to disassociate it. Of course, you don't have to look at him, so that's good. But I don't know. I don't know what he's truly guilty of. It's questionable, but it's also not. It's not good. And there's been some stuff that's problematic. Hopefully he gets help. But I find it interesting, and you referenced this a moment ago, how they're handling the marketing of this thing. He's nowhere to be found.
Yeah,
No, nowhere.
Ezra Miller, I think they are going to be going to the premiere. But I don't think when Ezra's there, I don't think they're going to be able to like say anything or speak to fans. They're just going to take photos.
Do we know anything this week leading up to the, or next week, really, I should say, the to the release of this thing? In other words, is like Michael Keaton booked on Jimmy Kimmel? I don't even know.
I don't think they can. I don't think they can because of the writers' strike. So all
Oh,
the
that's
shows.
right. That's right.
So it's very weird. There's been like interviews done on like morning shows and stuff with Sasha Calle and the director and his sister, who's the producer, and Michael Keaton like is making like appearances. Like I guess he made an appearance last night or early this morning at a theater screening somewhere.
Yeah.
Maybe it was London. I don't quote me on that. I can't remember. But yeah, it's very subdued marketing. They're just throwing a bunch of money at like TV spots in front of like NBA games and stuff, and just I think that's why they're trying to push this out to so many fans and screenings, because they're like, just tell everyone that this is a fun time in the movies. We really know like DC has had an up and down, like their films are not consistent. You can have 2 great films and the next 3 are stinkers. And so they're like trying to have fans just be like, oh, this is actually a fun time at the movies. Everyone should go see it. They're trying to push that word of mouth. And it's going to be interesting to see how this opens. I really have no idea. I mean, I don't know if a majority of the general public knows what Ezra Miller is dealing with. I don't think most people are like in the loop on what Ezra Miller is accused of. So it's going to be interesting to see if Ezra Miller's issues in real life will impact this film at all.
Yeah, and the interesting part of everything too, in addition to his issues, his legal problems and the ramifications of those, is the 800-pound gorilla in the room, which was just the Snyderverse in general, which, regardless of our own personal opinions of some of the films, whatever, which some I really like, others I don't, but some I do, it doesn't matter. It didn't quite resonate, and it left a bad taste in the mouths of the mainstream audiences, right? All of it did. Now, what was interesting was sort of an anomaly was like Wonder Woman worked, and then Aquaman worked. But Wonder Woman 84, it's kind of hard to tell. I like that movie better than some people did, but it also didn't really get a fair shot because it was during 2020, went to streaming. It was during COVID. I don't really know if that counts. It'll be interesting to see what happens with Aquaman 2. But, since then it's been, we've had the Batman, the Matt Reeves stuff that's independent, thank God. And then, which is amazing. But then we also are having a shakeup in terms of the direction all this is going. And sometimes I have a hard time balancing out the mainstream audience, which is the vast majority of the people that are going to support this film, and really the engine behind the success or lack thereof, depending on their repeat viewings and their word of mouth. So sometimes I can't quite reconcile, like, what do they know? What do they not know? General audience ends up really keeping up with this, but since we know so much, it's worth noting that there's so much, I don't want to say negativity per se, but there's a lot of things that are sort of just naturally working against this film, promoting Snyderverse characters, which unfortunately just aren't, it's a mixed bag, right? And so how does that work? Also, the fact that we know that, Batgirl was canceled, Michael Keaton was in that, and, they had plans for him moving forward. And whether or not that happens remains to be seen. I think a lot of that will be determined by the success of this film. But what we do know is the plans they had for him are no longer, right? He was going to sort of be the new DCEU Batman, but
he was going to be like the Nick Fury. And yeah, I think this film was always going to be like a nice end to the Snyderverse. And then it was going to lead into whatever Walter Hamada wanted to do. And now it's going to lead into just whatever James Gunn is doing. And we'll see what happens with Ezra, but I think they're going to be recast. I think James Gunn is probably just wanting all new actors. I mean, I wanted Henry Cavill back, despite, the up and down quality of his films. I like Henry, but I understand with so much baggage, it's time to just cast someone fresh in that role. So.
Right, exactly. And it's unfortunate that there's baggage, but there is. And and with him, obviously they're doing sort of a reboot and starting over, not showing an origin story, but showing the early years of Superman, much like with Robert Pattinson and Matt Reeves' Batman. You have to recast. He's a really damn fine Superman, but he's an established Superman. He's older. He's You know, like for James Gunn to accomplish what he wants to accomplish, he's going to be casting somebody in their 20s. I mean, that's almost a guarantee, right? So, and there's a lot riding on that film for him. But kind of coming back to this, so I don't know what's going to do at the box office either. There's projections of like 70 million domestically, which is not terrible, but it's not great. I really just don't know. It's such a weird film to market because they're kind of ignoring the lead. It's during the strike. The Snyderverse stuff, I think leaning on that is, questionable anyway. Who's the Supergirl? Okay, Zod's back from Man of Steel. Man of Steel was not well received by audiences. So I don't know. Is Michael Keaton's nostalgia enough to drive it? Don't know. What I do know is, even someone your age appreciating his work and the role is testimony to your fandom and how great he is. But it's also something that could easily not be there. I've got kids here that are all the way up to 16 years old, and they don't know Michael Keaton's Batman. They don't know. They know Kristen Bell's. It's kind of where they start,
Right.
Right. They don't even know, Val Kilmer or George Clooney either, to be fair. So I don't know. I have no fucking clue what's going to happen with this film.
It's going to be interesting because I enjoyed Man of Steel. I enjoyed some of the other films that Zack Snyder was involved with. Obviously, I much preferred the Snyder cut to the theatrical cut, although I do like some things in the theatrical cut of Justice League. So it was nice to see some of these. It was nice to see some of these actors back in this movie that popped up in previous Zack Snyder DC films. But I think it's smart to just be like, this is where it stops, and we're going to go forward. But yeah, I don't know what this does. I mean, Ezra Miller, they do a great job, double duty, playing two different versions of Barry, and that's a hard task. Sasha Calle, I think, with what she does a good job, and it's cool to see Supergirl again. It's a lot of action, a lot of CGI. Michael Keaton is obviously, you don't even have to worry. Michael Keaton, it doesn't even feel like 30 years have passed since Batman Returns. He just easily snaps back into that role. So there's all these great things. I just don't know if the general public's going to be like, well, why is Michael Keaton back and yada yada. I mean, they've seen No Way Home and Multiverse into Madness, Doctor Strange. So I think most general audiences have some kind of understanding of the multiverse somewhat. So I don't know. I don't know if just seeing a fun action movie with the Flash and a version of Batman is going to be enough to drive people. We'll see. I mean, I will say there's several Batman in this movie, and the opening 15 minutes is pretty cool. It's a pretty great opening sequence.
It's a great opening sequence, and I'll tell you the multiverse thing, and I'll be sure if you're watching, this is spoiler free, but if you don't want any spoiler-y thing at all, quit watching. Because I'm going to say one thing. It's not spoiler, but just it could be construed that way. It leans more into the multiverse stuff, if you will, than I thought it was going to. There were some really cool, really cool surprises, and I really hope that people don't ruin it online for people, because there was a couple of moments, and I wish I could say, you guys were sitting right in front of me, and I was like, God, did you see, but there were some moments that were a major wow factor if you're a DC fan, and if you know the lore, especially coming from live action, from TV to film to everything, some really, really special moments. And I love the ending. And there's a post-credit scene. Yes. Oh, the ending, dude. I wish we could talk. I wish we could talk about the ending.
I'll just say, I can't believe Andy and WB were able to convince that.
Nope. Stop.
It's crazy.
I will say this. So friends of mine that saw it, or really friends of ours that saw it prior to you and I seeing it, because we did see the final cut, apparently, that there's a scene that doesn't have certain things going on in it that's a little different. And so there's some stuff they were certainly keeping under wraps. So this is the part that was going to be dangerous about you and I doing spoiler free, especially live. Because, dude, there's been 3 times I'm going, I can't say, can't say that.
Damn that's why I went to see the screen, because I think I had maybe gotten a pass to something a couple weeks ago, and then I was online and people were saying, well, it's not finished, and I'm like, well, then I'm just going to wait to see the finished thing in theaters. And then this screening in Pearland popped up, and I'm like, all right, it seems like this is screening for critics. This is probably the final version. But yeah, I would say general audiences probably will enjoy this if they care enough about Batman and Flash and superheroes to go out and see it. If you are a Zack Snyder fan first and a DC fan second, don't know if you will enjoy this film, because I will say, Andy Muschietti, I think he likes Zack Snyder's work, his visual style. He pays a lot of homage to Zack Snyder, but this is very much, at the end of the day, a celebration of DC. This isn't about, the Tim Burton or Zack Snyder's version of characters. It's just a celebration of all the past decades of DC films. And
Absolutely.
so if you love DC in general, you're very likely going to like this. But if you're like a diehard Zack Snyder fan, I don't know if you will.
They're not going to. Let's just be real. If you're not someone who takes joy in these characters outside of those incarnations of said characters, then you're not going to like not only this, you're not going to like anything. A lot of those people, they didn't like the Batman, and they're certainly not going to like this one. It toys with some of the same characters, right? You know what I mean? And it's some of the same actors, and that's what's precious to them about this, is that it's a universe that has an overwhelming sense of familiarity in these characters, but it's also this other thing at the same time. What I would say, and here's the best advice I can give everybody, just my opinion, is that, and you said it really great at the top of this too, in terms of sort of expectations. If you're going into this expecting Batman 3 with Michael Keaton, don't do that to yourself. That's partly what I did. And so right now I have it graded in my head at like a B-, but I wanted this thing to be an A+. And you know what? It may be a C when I see it the second time. It may creep up to an A. You never know. These things grow on you and everything, but I got to see it again. But that was one expectation. I can just say that to be spoiler free. Don't expect, this isn't Tim Burton's third Batman film. He is there. He has a purpose, and he's there to help Barry. And this is a movie about Barry and Barry, right? Fair to say. He's a compliment, but this isn't Michael Keaton's Batman movie. I mean,
it's called The Flash for a reason. I mean, I will say a very large bulk of the film is with Barry and his younger self and doing what they do. I can't really say more, but it's Barry's movie, and Supergirl's there, Michael Keaton's there, other versions of certain characters are there, but it is the Flash movie at the end of the day, which I do like, because I was a little worried that this would just be the Batman show with a little bit of Flash, and I did want a Flash movie with Barry Allen, because we've never had one before, and it is very much that. So if you like The Flash, if you like Grant Gustin's TV show Flash, I'd say you'll probably enjoy this. If you like Batman overall in general, not just one actor or iteration of Batman, you'll probably like this. It's just a fun superhero movie, and in that regards, maybe it'll resonate with general public, because it's kind of just DC in general. But yeah, like you said, it's going to be interesting if this opens to 70, 80, 90, 100 million. I don't know. I think there's going to be walk-up business, but the amount of people that decide to just check this out at the last second next weekend, I don't know what that percentage of people is going to be.
Yeah, I don't either. And the whole multiverse thing too is, you said this earlier in terms of Spider-Man, No Way Home, Into the Spider-Verse, etc. But with this, it's new. We haven't really dived into this with DC, and it goes it goes all the way, man. It dives deep. So as we're waiting right now for the second part of the show where Bryan and Eric jump on, it was like Eric's running a little late anyway. I'll wrap my thoughts up as this. I like this movie a lot. I wanted to love it. I didn't love it. Ezra Miller is kind of a weird dude, and he's got some issues. Hopefully he sorts those out. The performance is amazing. The stuff he does, and I always kind of get curious if Michael Keaton was some sort of consultant on set, because the whole multiplicity thing, how well he pulled that off, because there's some really good shit in there with that. And the whole entire cast is great, and it's truly a love letter, and you can tell that Andy Muschietti and company love these characters and put a lot of heart into it. I will say, I wonder how much of this film was kind of butchered up a little bit with changes, because that, I think, is part of my issues also with the film, is there's some rushed moments, and it is,
I agree.
It's choppy. And they're like, okay, I'm like, that scene, I think, had a major part that was cut out because of things.
I agree.
Right? Like, I won't say but that, right?
Once James Gunn was hired to do a reboot at DC, I definitely think the ending changed. I think there's rumors that like they were going to tease a Crisis on Infinite Earth film, and I think they cut some stuff out about that. I think this movie, I mean, you said it, it ends with like Michael Keaton as the Batman going forward. And there's just so much stuff that that totally changed. And I think it did kind of affect some things in terms of the plot of the movie. I'll say like the first 2/3 are like an 8 out of 10 for me. But the last third act is a 6. It just feels a little rushed. It's a problem with a lot of superhero movies. The third act is so challenging. Many superhero movies, by the third act, they have such a great start and then they just resolve and just go to like plastic CGI figures punching each other. Even Wonder Woman, that I love. The third act with her and CGI Ares punching each other, it's just like a regular generic end to a superhero movie. So it's really hard. I'll say there's emotional moments in the third act amid all that CGI that helps it, but it's still just like a rock'em sock'em. And so I'd say I'd give the film maybe a 7 because the first 2/3 is like a solid 8, but the last act is a 6 also because surprisingly enough, there's some pretty dodgy CGI. I don't think it's like.
Do you really believe that? This is a common complaint. I'm seeing it all over fucking Twitter, and I'm like, I don't agree with this. Like, what's wrong with it?
I maybe I'm not referring to the style choices that Andy did with like the Speed Force. I'm talking more of like the desert stuff with Zod and everything. I just feel like a lot of it looked like a little plasticky. Like I feel like what they did in Man of Steel 10 years ago kind of looked a bit better. I don't know if you know they were on budget constraints or they didn't have enough time. And I'm not saying that this is just a WB problem. I still think CGI VFX companies are not being given enough time or money to do their jobs properly. I mean, Ant-Man 3, my opinion, had some pretty horrific CGI. Black Adam with that whole Sabak demon character at the end of the third act, horrible like video game cutscene. We gotta make.
What do you think of the Star Wars stuff on Disney Plus in terms of this?
I feel like Lucasfilm does a pretty good job, and I feel like they may give their VFX studios a bit more time. It just feels like for Marvel and DC and Fox, they really are just like, I don't know if they're not paying the VFX companies enough money or giving them realistic deadlines, but it just feels like, I don't know, maybe I'm just a harsh critic. It's just like when I can see everything looks like so plasticky, I'm like, we can do a little better with. And I will say before the third act, I feel like most of the visual effects were great. Batwing, Batman, the 2 Ezra Millers, the opening sequence. I mean, I don't know. It's just a little complaint that I have. It just looked a little video gamey by the end of the movie.
Well, and I feel that way about a lot of stuff, and again, I like a lot of the Snyder stuff, and Man of Steel looks pretty damn great overall. But you get into B versus S, and especially Justice League, and I mean both versions of Justice League. There's some stuff in those films that are really not good.
Oh no,
they're not. They're not good, and it looks really bad. So if you're a huge fan of those, but you're crapping on this, you might want to just kind of put that in perspective a little bit.
Yes, I will say the time and money they gave Snyder to finish the cut, yeah, the VFX weren't that great, and considering all the reshoots with Justice League.
Would you just call it Justice League? No, you.
Yeah, I did. Yes,
no,
I did.
Boo. Boo.
Hey, I actually didn't. I didn't mind what Joss did with Henry Cavill's Superman. I quite like some stuff there, but I'm just talking about when they reshot that movie. They didn't have a lot of time to do visual effects because it was months before release, and so the whole mustache removal thing, all the reshot Russia battle stuff. Yeah, those movies looked rough.
Well, it's the second time Tom Cruise has ruined a DC film, man. he held Katie Holmes hostage, wouldn't let her do The Dark Knight. Is this too far? And then, he makes Henry Cavill keep his mustache for reshoots.
Yeah.
Anyway,
hey,
boo.
Mission Impossible 7 was pretty good though with Henry Cavill. So
yeah. Well, so as we're still waiting on here, this is there's a million things that I want to ask you and things that we can't really get into, but we both like the film. We're both excited to see it again. We're both encouraging people to go see it. We both have some issues with it. I feel like some issues overlap, some are different. But ultimately, I think my issues, again, are more about expectations of certain characters and characterizations that didn't quite meet my standards or what I was hoping for. But now that I know that that's the way it is, I'll go in knowing that, and we'll see what happens on Monday night when I see it. When do you plan on seeing it again?
So I'll be traveling next weekend for Father's Day, but I do plan on seeing this very soon with my brother. He also grew up with the Keaton film. I mean, I'd say the first like 3 superhero films my brother and I saw as little kids was like Christopher Reeve Superman, Michael Keaton Batman, and then I think the first superhero movie either of us ever saw in theaters was like Tobey Maguire's first Spider-Man. So I know he has a connection to Keaton. I know he likes the Flash as general. I'm sure he'll like to see all these characters. So I'll see it again with him, and I'm sure we'll have a good time. But yeah, I'll definitely see it again, and it was very enjoyable. And there's things that I think I missed that I kind of want to recheck again. It's just all about expectations. I mean, it's a funny movie at times. It's a dramatic film at times. The whole arc with Ezra as Barry and all the emotional stuff with Barry's mom is really aced perfectly. I'll say the goods outweigh the bads. So it's just all what you expect going into it.
Well, there's Bryan Chatlien. Yay!
How you doing, guys?
Good.
So Connor, Bryan is 1/3 of Friends from Work, and then we have Courtney Cheek. So with the
How you doing, Connor? Hey, I was looking at your background there. You are artificial background replacement of a bedroom?
No, this is my bedroom.
You're actually okay. Like it looked artificial for a minute. I'm like, that's an interesting choice. What is he doing?
I was kind of hoping you'd have windows open and we get a beach view. No,
I know.
He lives in Galveston, by the way.
Okay.
Yeah.
I would love to live by the beach. Yeah, that'd be great.
Well, let me ask you this: as Bryan, we're talking about the Flash. Obviously, we saw it spoiler free, and we've done a really good job. So hopefully, in the last couple seconds here, I don't F it up. Right. But so Connor, do you think? Let's just say that this thing ends up at 78% Rotten Tomatoes. I hate that we put so much weight on this, but it's just the way it is now. But so it's 78% or so. It's fresh on Rotten Tomatoes, on audiences or critics, and then on audiences it's 82 or something, and it does 750, 800 worldwide. That's a good run. And those would be good kind of metrics, right? If that happens, can James Gunn ignore some of what transpired in this film? Michael Keaton, for example, is a good example of some of the stuff I'm talking about. Just what do you think in terms of your prediction as we're wrapping up here? And there's Eric.
Hello there. Hello there.
Hey, I remember you.
I
I used to podcast with that guy.
Hey.
Yeah. A couple times, sure.
A couple times. So Eric, Connor, Eric, you guys.
Yes, I'm familiar. Yes.
Yeah, he used to do some BOF stuff with us back in the day.
Yes.
Yeah. All right, so Connor, before you jump off, so are we going to see Michael Keaton again? Just your predictions.
Gosh, I mean, I think this will stay fresh on Rotten Tomatoes. Don't know about that box office. I think it might be closer to 600 million. We don't know.
That seems
James
low.
Gunn,
Are you not rooting for this to do well?
I really do want this to do well. I just I don't know. It's such a wild card how this is gonna do in terms of legs after opening weekend and what the international fanfare is like. I want it to do well because there's a lot of good things in here that I would like to continue. And on Twitter, James Gunn has said he's interested in Elseworld films, and I still would love a Batman Beyond movie with Michael Keaton. I think if this movie does solid enough at the box office, he's going to have to obviously do his main DCU thing, but probably be open to Elseworld movies like the Batman, Joker 2, a Michael Keaton Batman movie. I mean, there's money to be made in those kind of side projects things.
Yeah. Absolutely. And like you said at the top of the show, how easily he just slid back into the role. Like he just did this part 3 years ago, not 1991 when they filmed it, the last one, but 2020. I mean, just a chef's kiss. All right, buddy. Well, listen, thank you so much, man. It was really nice running into you on Monday.
Yeah, absolutely.
And the offer stands for you guys to come over for dinner one night. So let me know.
That'd be great. Well, you guys have fun, and I will be sure to check out Into the Spider-Verse very, very soon. I need to get on top of that.
You definitely do. It's fantastic.
Cool deal. All right, Connor. See you, buddy.
See ya.
All right, cool. He's off. What's up, Eric?
Hey.
What's going on, guys?
Straight out of Gotham.
Yep.
With your hit podcast.
Yeah, the little podcast that could.
That could
call it.
And is.
Yeah, we're doing pretty well. The group is growing on Facebook, and we keep adding listeners and viewers. So it's been good.
That's nice, man. When's your next show?
Well, we're taking a break until after the Flash. Pete didn't want to record. He wanted to kind of stay off the grid. He doesn't want anyone to spoil this movie for him. So until we decided, okay, we won't talk about anything until after the Flash show. It'll be next, I guess next weekend is our show.
When do you see it?
I see it on, well, possibly Monday. Very possibly Monday. There's a chance I might get into this fan screening I got to see. But if not Monday, I see it on Wednesday night.
On Wednesday night. Yeah, I can't wait to discuss it with all you guys. So much to say on that. Well, thank you both for being here. Well, Bryan, I can't thank you. This is your damn show, but you're here.
I'm here with you, man.
You're here with you. So, guys, I have not seen this new Spider-Man film yet, and it's not because I don't want to, because I love the first one. I loved it. It just logistics with kids in summer. I just haven't had an opportunity to. And then when it was funny is I was actually going to go see it on Wednesday night. And then I got an opportunity, or I'm sorry, Monday night. Or when did I see Flash? What night was that?
Oh, you got higher priorities. What's going on then?
Whatever night that was the night we were supposed to see that with the kids.
You got something shinier come in. And
that popped up. It fell in my lap, and I was able to go. And so obviously I went to that. But we're gonna go see it next week. Now, I was going to just sort of moderate this discussion real quick, just because I think it would be weird for me just to kind of jump off and go bye. But I don't care about spoilers on this thing. So I wanted to kind of do this as an interview format, if that was cool with you guys, and y'all can bounce off each other.
And by the way, for viewers, this is, I've been waiting for a spoiler conversation on Spider-Man. So if you haven't seen it, then swing away and then come back later.
So swing away. We're going to talk for the next 20 minutes or so about the show. Spoiler, and I have not seen it, but I'm good with that. So let's start with our guest, Bryan. Let's start with Eric. So first of all, good to see you, buddy. And listen, Eric and I have a great idea for an episode that we stumbled onto for Friends from Work. And you and I are going to do a show together, and we're going to talk about, and I haven't decided how to frame this from a marketing perspective, but I'm live, so I'm going to keep talking. Well, Eric and I were talking. It was like, dude, you remember having to stand in line for theater ticket or for concert tickets, and you had to wait for Ticketmaster to open? He's like, yeah, remember when this, and remember the TV guide, and you had to wait for commercials, and all of a sudden we're like, dude, this would be a great episode. So we're going to talk about that stuff, just like things of yesteryear in terms of logistics with pop culture, because it's the
old man hour. We'll do the old man.
There'll be nobody under 40 watching that.
I resent that, but they're starting to show videos online of asking kids about things from the late 90s, early 2000s, and these kids have no idea what any of them are. And I'm just sitting here going,
well, it's also just logistics, right? Like it's logistics, we were watching Back to the Future, Harper and I, where it's my 9-year-old, and in the present day, he's used, like, when he goes to the 1950s, he just walks over and goes, oh, there's a payphone. She's like, what is that? I'm thinking, wow, she doesn't know what a payphone is. In 1985, in present day, everybody was still using a payphone, just like 1955. So that wasn't something different. Right. So just little things that are just nuts. But anyway, so that's an episode that we're going to do. So jumping back into this. So Eric, for those that don't know you that are watching, what kind of give us a frame your fandom in terms of Spider-Man? Like, where does that rank for you?
Oh, wow. As far as comic book characters go, for me, it's Batman, Wolverine, and then Spider-Man. So Spider-Man is my third in the hierarchy of comic book heroes.
That's a solid lineup.
I didn't know Wolverine was that high for you, man.
Okay.
Nice. Yes, Wolverine is my my second favorite. But yeah, Spider-Man is third. Grew up reading some of the books. And then, of course, they had like these weird Spider-Man things on remember the old TV show that they had, that terrible TV show?
Electric Company?
Yes, the Electric Company as well. Yes. So all of that stuff. Growing up, I would watch Spider-Man. And then, when I never forget when the first movie was announced, when the first Sam Raimi movie was announced, I was like saying, like, is this real? Like, I really never thought we would get that kind of a film at that time. And when I saw it, Rick, I know you have problems with it, but when I saw it,
Rick, no.
When I first saw that movie,
Rank caller.
Nobody could tell me, like, to me, that was the standard of comic book films at the time. Like, of course, the Batman movies had come out already, but that first one, I was like, wow, this is fantastic. And but I've always been a fan. I've always been a fan of Spider-Man since I was young. Obviously, there's that period where you don't want to deal with it. You don't think it's cool to like anything from your childhood anymore. So I went through that as well. And then as I got a little older, and then I have a lot of nieces and nephews, and my nephews started to get into this stuff, so they kind of pulled me back in, and that's how my fandom evolved.
Nice. And those years were rough, man. When it wasn't cool, so we had to hide it. Yeah. I can remember losing a date. She comes over to my house like my freshman year in high school, and I have this like fishnet. I stole it from like a Captain D's or Long John Silver's, or who knows what those places are. Like literally, yeah. And it had Keaton, Nicholson, all kinds of stuff, Frank Miller, and it had toys. I don't remember what run it was. I couldn't tell you, but they were anyway. It was almost inspired from the TV show because the Penguin looked a lot like Burgess Meredith, hanging off the net. I had this whole thing, the shelf with comic books, and she walks in. She's like, "Are you into Batman? You're like 14." I'm like, and it goes away. And that one, and it disappeared for a few years. So I totally get it. No, that's great. So, and by the way, I really, really, really love Sam Raimi's Spider-Man 2, just so we're clear.
Yes, I know you like 2.
Love that movie. It's still one of the best Spider-Man movies.
Yeah.
And William Dafoe, by the way, did an amazing job in Far From Home. I can't lie, he did. I liked him a lot better in that than I did the original.
I thought he was too much in the first one. It always felt way too cartoony for me in the first one. But when he came back and you start leveling it off with the deception and with the everything else where he's flat out lying to you when he's being nice, suddenly, he turned into a scary character. I don't know that I was ever actually scared of him or intimidated before.
I hated that I loved that performance. I'm like, maybe I'm slowly kind of becoming a William Dafoe fan. It took me a hot minute, but anyway,
he's been on a good run.
Yeah, no, he has. So Bryan, I know you're a Spider-Man super fan, and you were Spider-Man for when I was doing Superman. I only did it for a couple of years. You did Spider-Man for
a decade.
Like I remember pictures of you. You were like hanging off the windows at the Dallas Children's Hospital and stuff like that. Really entertaining kids with leukemia and, man, just doing God's work, brother.
Well, and doing the appearances at school assemblies, talking to kids for an hour about bullying and child abuse or fitness or that kind of thing.
Yeah.
They had me bounce around and doing stuff for a while, so I had to learn the character.
Yeah. Big deal. All right, guys. So we all three love the first film. Don't hold back with me here. It's cool. I'm good with spoilers on this. I kind of know everything at this point anyway. So Eric, what are your thoughts on this new movie?
I didn't think you could top the first one, but this is one of the rare instances where the sequel is better than the original.
Is it?
Really? I was worried about that part.
Is it really?
Yeah, it is better. For me, it was. I mean, you might have a different reaction, but for me, it definitely was. It's a richer story. I thought there's a lot of elements to it. There's a lot of layers to it, but none of them get cheated. It's very well put together. They all intertwine and intersect at the right times. I really, really enjoyed this. The vocal performances were fantastic. Everything that was great. Oscar Isaac does.
Yes.
He's in it. I forget the Spider-Man he plays. There's so many of them. But he's like a weird, different kind of Spider-Man, I guess.
He's borderline vampire.
Yeah, he's kind of like a vampire. So that was a weird, different thing for me. But it's just really, really well done. And this could be. It could be. Every time I watch an animated movie, I always try and say, could this work in live action? Could this be something they could do? And it would cost a lot of money because there's a lot of technical elements they'd have to do, but it would be a fantastic live action movie. It was so good. Yeah. I really, really love it. Rick, I can't wait for you to see it.
I can't wait either. My girls, everybody's excited. In fact, with my stepkids, we were talking, I think we're going to all go as a big group over the next couple of nights. So one common complaint I've heard about this, Eric, and Bryan, and then you jump in, is and there's not very many people complaining about this at all, but the one consistent semi complaint is that they felt like it was just kind of setting up for the next chapter. Did you feel that at all, or does this feel like a complete independent film on its own?
Yeah, go for it, Eric.
Well, I already knew they were making another one, right? So if going into something like, I say this all the time, if you're watching a trilogy, the second movie is setting up the third one, right? So if that's what I knew, this was split into 2 parts. So yes, there's obviously that element of it's leading into what's finally going to happen in the third one. But I never, even how it ends, I never thought at one point that it was just a connective piece, like a movie that was a connective tissue piece. I never thought that at all. You get to me, I just got so ingrained in the story. I didn't even care about that. So I think anytime a movie is really good, I think people just try to nitpick and find things to dislike. And when I heard that complaint, I'm like, there's no one coming after it. So why in the world? Of course, that's part of the film. That's what it's doing. Yeah. There's a conclusion to this story. We didn't get it. It's coming. So yeah, that's there. But is it like blatant? Does it take you out of the film? Not at all.
Good.
Not at all.
Well, I'm glad to hear that.
Yeah, Bryan, I got a thought on that one because it's interesting. I don't think of this as a trilogy. It is so part one was a standalone movie. If the whole thing had ended there, it would have been perfect and standalone and amazing. Right. Which is the way it is with a lot of trilogies. They started off with this is a standalone just in case. And this one doesn't feel like part 2 of 3. It feels like there was the first movie, and this is the first part of a 2-parter. It is not its own complete story. It is into the second act of the story, which is really amazing. Talking about how full it is and talking about how much is going on. It's a 2-hour and 20-minute movie, and it is into the second act. So in terms of people saying, oh, yes, there's a big story happening. There's a lot of story elements, and you're right. They all intersect at just the right times, and it felt so good. But it's not part 2 of a trilogy in my brain. It's part 1 of a 2-parter.
That almost sounds like the Matrix, the initial Matrix sequels to me.
Yeah, you're right, because the second movie was not a standalone. The second movie was basically just opening things up for the big conflict in the third.
And in some ways, even really Back to the Future 2 and 3 felt that way as well.
Yeah.
Very cool. Well, you guys kind of run with it. Like, I want to hear like.
Oh man.
So, Eric, I'll ask you this. So you loved it. It was a more rich story. Peel back that onion a little bit more for us. What do you mean by that? Just because the characters are established and we were able to see more of them, or was it just
specifically Gwen? Right? They really dive into Gwen in this one, and I think which the first film I felt like she was part of the story, but this one she's literally for half the film she's the main character. So you have her story, you have Miles's story, and they're obviously the 2 main stories, but there's so much in it. There's so many other Spider-Men that get a chance to shine in this. Peter B. Parker comes back, so you get to see what he's up to now. Yeah. That character was a big part of the first one. He's in this one in a nice looking bathrobe. It's kind of cool. and he has a child, so that's another thing. But yeah, like it's just so layered. And like I said, none of the characters get cheated. Their stories are rich, complete. Like Bryan said, we know a next one's coming, but if it ended before the last part, you wouldn't be happy because it's leading into to the next one. But there's a point where if they cut it at they edit at a certain point for I want to say like the last maybe 25 minutes, that could have been it. You could have just had the movie. Yeah. For me, I thought there was a point where I'm like, all right, it could end here. But then you got the last part where he goes back and I don't want to say, well, we're spoiling, right?
We're spoiling, yeah.
So he goes back to the Earth where the spider who bit him 42, yes, was from, and that's not where he was really from.
Yeah.
So that's where, but if they cut it right before that, where he just came back and he kind of lands there and they just ended the movie there, I think you could be like, okay, that's fine. That was a good movie too.
Yeah.
All right.
Do you agree with all that, Bryan?
I agree with all that. It's you get my brain going now. I'm trying to think of if they had decided to make this its own standalone, what storyline would they have cut out? And I don't know what they could have cut out just in case they needed to trim the fat and just make it its own standalone. There's so many different story threads going on, almost like a spider's web. Don't shake your head at me. I see you. No. Don't shake your head at me. You called on you invited me out here for this.
Well, if you when you go see the movie, Rick, he's
see the movie. Right. Come on, man.
I'm just trolling.
I love all the different threads. It's really interesting how many things they threw into the background, all the little glimpses of different costumes, all the different of everything else. If you don't know what you're looking at, cool. Basically it's a Counselor Rick's for Spider-Man, and you just got a whole bunch of different costumes, colorful in the background. But if you know what you're looking at, if you actually have any idea of all of the different variations of Spider-Man, like there's so much to feed off of in the background. There's a couple of pieces that I want to throw out there for discussion. I want to get your take on this because I'm not hearing a lot of people talking about it. They had live action clips in this.
Yes.
Which ties them into, because every universe, every one of those Spider-Man is a different style of animation, is a different style of art. So they're all from different universe, and they're showing things from live action, which they showed the woman in the convenience store in Venom.
Yep.
So they are now tied into, because Venom is now tied into the MCU. So my question here is this Sony doing what Sony keeps doing, which is going, we're in the MCU too, and sometimes the MCU goes,
no, you're not.
And sometimes they do Morbius, and then the MCU goes, no, absolutely not.
Well,
So,
I'm going to say this real fast. I was like, I'm cool with spoilers. Now I'm sitting here going, why am I sitting through this right now? That would have been cool to see. now
said,
screw it. I'm just going to ask questions about it. But anyway,
okay,
go ahead, Eric.
Go.
No, I mean, yeah, you see Andrew Garfield's.
Yes.
Obviously, we know what you see Andrew Garfield in this. Did
he film something for this? Is it something?
No, it's just a clip from the first Amazing Spider-Man.
Oh, I see.
You see a little piece of that.
Yeah.
So they bring him in. You don't see any Tom Holland though. Like there's nothing. I don't see anything with Tom Holland. So.
And that's one of my questions, because there's a couple of very key points that they didn't show that would have directly tied it to the MCU, but it's almost like they're hoping. Like there's enough close points that could bring them into the live action universe, which would be cool.
Yeah, well, I mean, Garfield is part of that universe now, so even showing him the connection could be made to say, this is the same. I mean, obviously, this is across the Spider-Verse, right? So every Spider-Man ever made is possible.
It was potentially part of the story, but it's a question as to whether Marvel will tuck them in. So I'm really curious about that. And it took me a minute to catch the reference when you saw Donald Glover.
Yes.
Donald Glover in the Prowler costume.
Yeah.
That's from the interrogation scene in Homecoming.
Yeah.
Spider-Man Homecoming. When he talks to him out in the
I
parking garage.
I forgot he was in that.
He was in that, and it took me a minute to catch that reference. Is when he webs his hand to the trunk, and he's sitting there talking to him, and he's like, "Man, you got to get better at this part of the job."
I remember that.
That's a great scene. Such an underrated movie.
It's an underrated. So you see him standing there.
Talking to you, Nico. Go ahead.
What's that?
Friend of me and Eric's. Go ahead.
All right. But you see him standing there in the costume, and it took me a second to remember that they had referenced his nephew Miles lives in that area, and he's got family. And man, you got to keep this place safe. There's an entire loop back in there, which is brilliant. So that's them actually actively tying into some different elements. So I'm loving all of that. I'm eager to see where they go with the next movie. Here's the question. Are they going to try to bring Miles into live action MCU?
Well, since they introduced the multiverse, they could.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's very possible they could bring him in.
Yeah.
Isn't it kind of inevitable at this point, you think, Eric, that there's a live action? I mean, there's that great line with Jamie Foxx and Andrew Garfield at the end of No Way Home. It's like, man, cool kid, web slinger from Brooklyn. I really thought you're going to be black. Maybe there's a black Spider-Man out there somewhere. That's a great line. And I know it's kind of just a nod to all of us, but I would think that they would. I mean, what do you think, Eric? Are they going to bring Miles to live action?
I mean, like I said, they could. I don't know if they're going to. There's talk now that Tom Holland actually has signed a contract to play him again. I heard a rumor about that not too long ago. It's not completely finalized, but they're pretty much have decided he's coming back. It's just they don't know what the number is going to be. He just did that show that I believe is on Apple Plus or Hulu or one of those streamers. So, and he said he's taking a year off. So whatever they're doing, it's at least a year from now that they'd start developing the story or putting it in pre-production. But yeah, so I mean, if he's coming back, he's their Spider-Man. How are you going to fit Miles in unless you do a multiverse story which is kind of what they did in just the last one. So
yeah,
right. Or do you have a coexisting Spider-Man live action film with Miles and that, and then maybe they intersect down the road?
Well,
I
with
don't
the
know.
Kangs, if they manage to figure out how to resurrect the Kang dynasty with the Kang storylines, that whole thing exists in multiverse.
yep.
So that basically shoes that in. By the way, side note, talking about the different universes, the Lego scene.
Mm-hmm.
Do you know the story behind that? Do you know what's going on with that?
I don't.
The one of the heads for the movie, I forget which one it was, but one of the heads for the movie, he saw a clip that a 14-year-old kid, he animated some scenes. It was the first trailer for Homecoming. He went and did that in his computer in Lego.
Wow.
And it was so good that they went back to this kid and said, hey, make us a scene for the movie. And his dad went and souped up their computer at home, and he got 30 seconds in this. And that Lego was done by a 14-year-old kid in his home computer.
That's fantastic. I mean, it was a great scene. It was.
That is cool.
The way they throw it in is perfect. Like they throw it in, you're like, that's Lego. You're like, it's the Lego universe too.
Yeah.
But hey, there's a Lego movie, right? And we have Lego Batman. So
tying in, bring it on, man.
That's so great. So Brian, you had just as we're kind of wrapping up the tail end of this, you had another thing you had written down, right? Or no?
Did I?
I don't know. You said you had two things or no?
Two things.
Maybe you didn't.
I don't know.
I was just trying to help you. I was just trying to help you stay on
about.
track, buddy. I need help to stay on track. So
I know there's a Disney just came out with a trailer for a Stan Lee docuseries, and I'm looking forward to that. That looks like it's going to be absolutely endearing. I got to check that out soon.
Well, let me ask. Yeah, that does sound great. Let me ask you a question, Brian. So, Eric liked it better than the original. Where do you stand on that?
The original stands on its own 2 feet. The original was brilliant because of all of the character introductions, and it was amazing. This is amazing because of where it can go. So that remains to be seen. I mean, you gotta bring it home. The first one brought it home at the end of its own storyline. This one, the next movie has to bring it home. I loved it. There's so much to it. I want to go to how do you say it?
Moombatten?
Moombatten?
Yeah.
I want to go to Moombatten. I want to, it looked amazing. Yes, I loved all of that.
It's an Indian Manhattan. That's what it was.
Yeah.
Well, I love the passion and the enthusiasm from you guys on this, and I can't wait to see it. I can't believe I haven't. I mean, I love that first film. I remember watching it, and I was shocked about how much I loved it. Just because, admittedly, animation is it's not really my cup of tea.
Yeah.
But when things start to draw me in, like Eric shamed me into watching Clone Wars, for instance, over the years. I mean, you can't, if you're a fan of this stuff, you can't deny the richness and the character building and world building it's doing by itself that lends itself to live action, especially now with Star Wars. Those are they are married, especially Disney Plus really solidified that. But in terms of this, I think that, like, I love Lego Batman. Love it, love it, love it. I think it's a love letter to Batman. I think it's pure joy. But I won't lie. I think my favorite animated film is that first Spider-Man. And so I'm really, really stoked for this.
The animation, it gets a little loud at times. That's part of what it is. It gets a little loud at times, but the animation is beautiful. Every frame of it. The music in the first one was one of the big things. Some of those sequences and some of those scenes set to the right music was incredible. They've got some of that going on with this one. The funny thing is, everybody that talks about this movie, nobody says much about Miles' actual story. We were all talking about everything else on the bigger picture, but I hear very people talking about Miles' actual story. I'm loving it.
It's the undercurrent of the whole movie.
Yeah,
but there's so many things going on around it, but they do always bring you back to.
But it's funny that it's the undercurrent.
Yeah, it is. It is. In this one specifically, yes, it is.
Yes.
Do they balance it well, Eric?
I thought they did.
Yeah.
Like every time something happens, it ties back into Miles. right?
Yeah.
So so all this great stuff is going on, and then bam, this is Miles. Like it's Miles.
Yeah.
So it does it, but still, like Bryan said, for a lot of the film, you're being pulled in all these different directions, and Miles is kind of just there.
He's almost the audience's avatar for half the movie. He's the one that's being brought along, and he has no idea what he's looking at, just like the rest of us.
Well, in this, he really doesn't. That's part of the story. Like he doesn't know anything about anything else except where he lives and his specific job as Spider-Man.
Nice.
And that's the growth of him in this one. Like you see growth by the end because he goes through all this stuff that he now understands what his role is bigger than just this Spider-Man.
So Eric, how many times have you seen it?
I've only seen it once.
When are you gonna see it again?
I don't know. There's so much going on. I saw Transformers Wednesday.
Really? And
I have The Flash coming up. So I go to the movies a lot, but I still have to, I have other things I have to do in my life. So, I can't just go to the movies all the time.
Thing, whatever.
But I like Transformers. This was a very good one.
Okay.
Fun.
Yeah, it's a fun film. Most of them are, but this one actually has a story. It's a good story. The human element is and the robot's mission is aligned pretty much. So it's very, very good. Obviously, if you're a fan of Transformers, Peter Cullen's voice is just like Optimus Prime. Forget it. So good. So hearing him again, Anthony Ramos is fantastic. Dominique Fishback is fantastic. It's based in 1994, so for me, the soundtrack, it's all 90s hip hop, and I love 90s hip hop. So for me, it was listening to that stuff, watching the film.
That's right up your alley, dude.
Yeah, that was.
So is this going off of the Bumblebee storyline or timeline?
Yeah.
Okay.
It's a soft reboot. They mention in the film, they reference the Bumblebee movie.
Okay.
So they do reference it. It's very short. It's not long.
Okay.
But they do reference that he's been here longer than the rest of them, and he's had relationships with humans before.
Nice.
So that's kind of the nod to it. But it's not the Bay movies at all.
No, well, that's good because I liked the Bumblebee movie. That actually was a really well done. It was kind of like a love letter. I liked it.
Fine.
Yeah, this is a follow up to that, and it's a little bit more traditional, end of the world type. We got to save the world type thing. And Unicron's in it. If you're a fan of the franchise, Unicron is he's in it. So that's that's a great thing to see him on screen, not in the cartoon form, was great to see. But he doesn't transform. That's the one thing I'll say. He doesn't transform into his robot in this one. So we might have to wait. I think they're setting up this to be, if this one does well, to be kind of a trilogy type deal, and then with Unicron being the Thanos,
the big
in
bad.
the background. Yeah,
love it.
Fun. So go see Transformers. Well, before we do plugs, any final thoughts on?
I got one for you, Rick. I got a special request. Just because I'd love to hear it. Have you gone to take your girls to see Little Mermaid yet?
No, that is on our list. In fact, with my two daughters, Hadley, my oldest, that's her number one choice. Harper's is Spider-Man, but I think with like their stepsister that they worship, who's 16, she wants to see Spider-Man, so I think that's the one we're all gonna go see first. So but no, we will go see Little Mermaid for sure. In fact, I've got them for the summer. That is, I have to do that or I'm the worst dad on the planet.
Yeah. Well, see, I want to go see it, but part of it is I want the experience of a movie that you and your wife grew up with being redone live action and kind of bringing new generations into it. Man, I'd love to talk to you. Like, what were their takes on it? What their responses were to it?
Yeah, absolutely. I think there'll be something that it'll be worth discussing for sure.
Cool.
So we'll let our guests have the last word here, but Bryan, what do you think in terms of just any final words on Spider-Man?
No, loved it. It's amazing. Superhero movies are getting better and better. Every time you see one, you go, oh, this is the new definitive. A couple of years later, something else comes out and you kind of back up a half a step and go, oh. So, no, I'm loving it. I'm eager to see what happens next.
It's good to say that because sometimes we get wrapped up in certain films not being great. Not everything lands for everybody, us included. And then we start saying, is the genre, is the whole thing, is it watered down? But you pull back and say, the Batman, Spider-Man. I mean, there's some phenomenal films.
Guardians 3 was fantastic.
Just amazing stuff. And I would say that I think The Flash is probably going to be in that for a lot of people, possibly even me myself. But
really,
yeah. All right. So where can people find you, Bryan? We're gonna give, like I said, Eric the last word here. At Chatlien Photo.
Yeah, at Chatlien Photo on Instagram. I'm your friendly neighborhood photographer. Give me a call or text me or something. Yeah.
Yeah, and he's good. Headshots, wedding photos. Well, you do a lot of corporate stuff these days, though.
I do a lot of corporate stuff, branding, marketing. Just if you're trying to put a brand together, give me a call. I can help you out.
Damn fine photographer. Okay, Eric, my
sir.
friend, thanks for doing this. First of all, buddy.
Yeah,
especially last minute. I'm looking forward to us having a one-on-one chat about old man stuff. Final words on Spider-Man, and then plug away, man.
Well, kind of just to piggyback off what you guys have been saying, coming off of No Way Home being such a great Spider-Man film, I felt like even though this was coming off of Into the Spider-Verse, which was such a great first film, I felt like there was a lot of pressure on this movie for the brand. And although I didn't expect it to be bad, both of those films to me are top level. Like Into the Spider-Verse was top level, so was No Way Home. So you have these two great Spider-Man films, and then this one was coming next. I felt like it had a lot to live up to, and it even surpassed that for me. It was so good. Everyone should go see it. If you're a fan of Spider-Man, go see it. If you're not a fan of Spider-Man, go see it. Yeah. It's just a good movie. It has a really good story. It'll pull you in. I even think for some kids it might go over their head. I think they'll like obviously the colors and the characters and what they are, but even if the kids are too young, it might go over their head, but they'll still enjoy it.
Yeah.
So that's the thing. I think, and everyone can go see this film. I don't think there's anything scary where a kid might freak out. At least I didn't think so, but I'm not a parent, so I don't want to say that. But definitely everyone go see this movie. And yeah, let me know what you think about it too.
Love it. Where can we find you on social media, sir?
Well, you see all my socials down there. The first one is my direct account. It's at Finally33 on Twitter. The second one is for Straight Outta Gotham, which is the show that I co-host with Peter Vera at straight_O_G. And the third one is for my Knicks live stream, New York Knicks live stream that I do at all_Nick_up every Wednesday night. Is a live stream that me and a couple of my Knick fan friends do to commiserate together about the New York Knicks.
Nice. What is your favorite Texas sports team, if you had to choose? Rangers, Cowboys, Astros, Knicks. Stars. Who do you hate the least?
Who do I hate? Right. Probably the Stars. I probably hate the Stars the least.
Okay.
I hate the Astros. Oh God, I hate the Astros.
Man, here in Houston, their fans are more obnoxious than Cowboys fans. I'm telling you, it's crazy.
Everybody in Dallas is fickle. They're fans when teams are winning, but when teams aren't winning, they could care less.
Well, people say that, but we have been pretty damn loyal with the Cowboys that haven't really been good since 1997. So there is that. But anyway, I digress.
Well, I will. It's possible. The Jets play Dallas in Dallas this year. Me and my friends are just talking about going, so I might be down there in September.
You please come. And I'm trying to get up there to see Back to the Future this year. We're trying to make that happen. So I'll let you know when we do as well. So anyway, thanks again, buddy. We'll see you soon on a show. Yes, Bryan, good to see you, man.
Good to see you. It's been a minute since we've done one of these.
Me and Courtney got to do something, just the three of us. All right. So we are the Friends from Work. We appreciate you listening. Follow me on Twitter at, I'm not Shew Rick anymore. I had to go a little incognito. Long story. At Dick Shoes. Born from the BOF days, but it's DICKSHEW, my last name. That's my Twitter handle. Follow us at Friends Work Pod everywhere on social media, iTunes, Stitcher, blah, 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 blah. I'm Rick Shew, Bryan Chatlien, Courtney Cheek. We're the Friends from Work. Thank you very much.